Before I get started, I want to address something that I, I hope at least some of you care about. It just occurred to me, I don't know if anybody you do, but if you do, that's great. If you don't, just skip forward a few minutes. You notice I'm back to this shirt. Now, let me make sure you can, you can see it there. Right after I finished recording the previous episode, I was asked, okay, hang on, let me rewind a little bit. I'm doing the end of Voyager this week. My perspective, of course. But Endgame will be going live at the end of May. April, May. Yeah, that's right. So I'm finishing up Voyager. And that's a weird thought to me. And I decided to look up exactly how long it's been. It turns out it's been nearly 4.5 years. I'll figure out the exact date when I get to Endgame, because I tend to be a nostalgic idiot about that. But I was looking at it, and I noticed my first episode ever, I was wearing this shirt. Now, I was in a little bit worse shape then, and I had a little more hair, and I had medical issues out the wazoo, but it was this shirt. And I hope if you've remembered it or go back and look at it now, you'll notice that it's gotten a little faded. Man, it actually looks even more faded when I'm looking at it, but you can actually see it better on the screen because of the lighting I'm using. But it's because this is actually a shirt I've had for many, many years, and I started wearing it pretty much every week to do my Voyager stuff, right? And I thought, you know what? As much as I'll probably switch to the new uniform when it comes to TNG and DS9, I kind of want to finish Voyager with the same outfit thing that I've got going on that I started Voyager with. It's kind of a nice bookend kind of a thing, and I'm a sentimental idiot, so what do you want from me? So with that out of the way, I hate to say that in this episode, because I freaking hate this episode. I'm sorry. Wow, I don't like this episode at all. Oh my god. So, okay. Season 7 has, for me thus far, been pretty good. I mean, we had the one little blip and then some average episodes, but overall some high-quality stuff. Then we run into this monstrosity. When I started playing it, I'm like, I don't remember this episode. And then I went into it a bit, and then went into it a bit, and then it got to the point where I saw the Ventu, and I'm like, oh, this one. I usually don't... I've mentioned before that there's 2 episodes I skip on rewatching Voyager. That would be Threshold and Alliances. I was actually wrong. There are 3. This is the 3rd one. I hate this episode. So this may devolve into me ranting, just so you're warned. First of all, let's go ahead and talk about the Tom subplot, the B plot. Because the B plot, plot, is there, and when it first showed up, I was entranced by it. I know that sounds weird, but I'm like, awesome. You know, I always love it when fiction does little things that aren't really necessary, but just add a believability factor to a work. You know, just something a little more realistic, something a little more mundane, something a little more relatable for us, the people watching it, or the people playing the game, or whatever, to relate to. And the idea of a starship, running into a culture and pretty much accidentally violating one of their rules and having to, deal with that and deal with the consequences of that for diplomatic reasons and whatnot. I was like, yes, that's awesome! Then it literally immediately turns into a, ha ha ha! Oh, he's a good flyer, but now he has to take flying lessons. Isn't that so funny? It's literally the same type of writing as, ha ha, Neelix is a bad cook! I mean, whoops, sorry. There we go. And I actually feel like this is one of, I really believe that came in through Kenneth Biller's input. I could be wrong about that. But I look at that and it's like, why? You took an actual potential thing that you could do to help flesh out Voyager, and Lord knows you've been doing a lot of fleshing out of Voyager in the last 2 seasons, and then just threw it into a comedy plot which is so minor as to practically not even exist. It even culminates in this line of just face-palming where the guy says, I'm afraid you will never fly in the Bentus, or Lodesian? Space again. Why is that line even there? Then we get to the A plot. You remember when I was so pissed off at Tattoo? Maybe you don't. Maybe you haven't been watching my stuff. I was pissed off at Tattoo. Not as much as some people, but it didn't go sync well with me. Before I get to the elephant, let's leave the elephant in the room for last. Okay, let's just push it over there. It's difficult because it's an elephant, but just do it with me here. I need your help. There we go. First of all, look at all that character development that's happening between Chakotay and Seven. Isn't it? Can't you just see the sparks flying? Wait, you can't? Oh, of course you can't. That's because they have no goddamn chemistry. I'm only belaboring this point because of Suddenly Human, or Human Error, excuse me, wrong episode. Human Error, which was a few episodes ago, and Endgame, which is coming up. And both of these contain the same subplot that basically came out of absolutely nowhere, and as I think I've already made clear, was stupid. There's no attempt at building any rapport between them, trying to move them together, trying to indicate why they might have any kind of feelings towards each other. No attempt whatsoever is made at building this relationship. Which is even stupider because it's not like Voyager doesn't know how to do that. They did that with Tom and B'Elanna. They took their time with Tom and B'Elanna. They spent years building up that relationship. And they did a good job of it. It's not like Star Trek doesn't know how to do that in general, for that matter. Granted, it doesn't do it that well, that often. There are some Star Trek romances I just roll my eyes at. Odo and Kira. But, God's sakes, it's just, they're not even, it's like they put the two characters in the same script and then didn't bother to actually do anything where the characters would interact with each other. No, see, here's the problem. Chakotay's only purpose in being there, aside from being the native guy, is the fact that he actually has enough of a brain to figure out how to communicate with the people. And credit where credit is due, that was actually pretty cool. This is actually the second time, to my memory, that we've seen Chakotay showcase that he's a better diplomat than most of the other people on Voyager. I know this is a weird parallel, but remember way back in Basics, he couldn't speak their language, so he used body posture, slow, non-threatening movements, and a calm tone of voice. And I praised that back then, because it's not actually that hard to communicate with someone who doesn't know your language, especially in an emergency situation. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. One of the things I did back when I was in survival training was exactly that. You know, if you end up on the shores of, like, France, I don't know French. Now, French people might know English, but the point being, let's assume we can't communicate. And so I had to get across to my instructor what I was trying to communicate. And it's all about how you do what you do. And they do a good job of that in this episode. Chakotay is like, all right, this, a little bit of water, this river, communicating what it is, and then showcasing what it is, and then basically asking what's your word for this, and learning their language and learning how they present it. And it even turned out to be useful because it ends up helping him to help Seven in the end. So credit where credit is due. I'm thinking if I have anything else to praise about this episode. I don't think I do. Because the next thing that happens is they're in a dire situation which Chakotay treats like it's a vacation. And Seven treats it like it's a Monday. Now, to explain what I mean by that, let's actually think about this for a moment. First of all, Seven has knowledge of this kind of force field. She knows it's strong. They did name drop that earlier. Seven also understands how strong it is. It basically overwhelmed their ship pretty much instantly. They did a last-minute, oh crap, try to break through the shield just to survive. They were willing to go to warp in atmosphere to get away from that, which is something that is very, very, very rarely done. In fact, I'm actually not sure off the top of my head if there's ever been a warp from atmosphere situation. So, dire circumstance. The possibility that they might be stuck here forever. And Chakotay is just like, yeah. He treats it like a vacation. He's just like, yeah, there's no threat. There's no feeling of what, intellectually, I feel like this is one of the more quiet danger situations. You know what I'm talking about? I've talked about this before in Voyager and in my other Ruminations. It's, a giant T-Rex stomping down on you. That's dangerous. That's obviously dangerous. Now imagine you're in this beautiful paradise where everything is lush and golden and green and just whatever it is you like, right? However, you're... I'm constructing this badly. You're stuck I got a better one. I got a better one. This is actually from a movie. Let's assume for a moment, this is, again, badly constructed, but beautiful, lush paradise. You're out on a rock outcropping, not that far from the shore. However, that water is filled with sharks or piranhas or something that will kill you within seconds of you getting into the water. You're in no immediate danger. You're on the rock. You're fine. But it is quietly dangerous. You're surrounded by peaceful, beautiful vistas and nothing threatening at all. However, you're stuck there. And if you screw up, you're dead. That's the quietly dangerous situation. And I tend to like those kind of situations because they have their own unique form of horror about them, you know? It's kind of the Stepford Wives sort of a situation, too. Everything's wonderful. Like in Fallout 3, there was, oh, I can't think of the name of it. What's a Fig Lane? You know, Peaceful Grass Lane or whatever it was. Is a great example of a quietly dangerous situation. But anyways. So they're in this horrifically quietly dangerous situation. Possibility of just being stuck here forever. Which is, by the way, to give you an idea, the same thing that Tom and Tuvok are going through all the way back in, I forget the name of the episode. But no, it's a vacation. Because there's native people, right? I'm sorry, I hate to bash that point again. Then, of course, this cropped up so much in the later end of Voyager, and I have made it a point to point it out every time it happens. And I was happy to stop doing that. It was like, oh, I can finally stop pointing this out every time it comes up, because it stopped coming up. However, Seven learns a lesson about humanity, and this is a Seven episode. Chakotay is basically a guest star in this episode. Tom is a comic relief in this episode. Janeway is just there to be Janeway because she's the title character. This is a Seven episode, and Seven learns a lesson about humanity because blah, 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 blah. I actually felt like I could feel the writers as they're writing, actually probably typing the script up, like, learn a lesson about humanity, damn it, come on. I literally don't even need my notes for the rest of this. I got nothing else to say. I actually have only like a half a page of notes for this episode. Because the big thing, I've been circling the meat here, but it's time to charge in like the vulture that I am. Let's... I don't know. The reason I don't like this episode is because it preaches at me. Let's ignore for a moment the fact that we're still not to the elephant. It's still over there. The elephant in the room is a very complicated, very gray topic. It's the kind of thing that Star Trek was built for. The kind of thing that Star Trek usually excels at. Truthfully. It's one of the things that really started engaging me about Star Trek. Even when I was young, they would bring up complicated topics and then not really resolve them. They would leave it up for you. They would showcase the diversity of perspectives and ideas and the no right answer concept. I don't even remember how old I was when I first saw Measure of a Man in TNG. I was pretty young, but I watched it when it came out on TV, on my terrible grainy TV with the antennas held just right, a little bit of tinfoil on them. I remember that. And I remember it stuck with me because it was tackling something that was actually a real topic, a real dilemma. And that's what the elephant in the room of this episode is, which I still haven't even brought up because we're not even there yet. Because even if it was a normal, mundane topic, the episode, regardless of what it's preaching about, it pisses me off that it is preaching. Maybe this is just me, but I don't like it when a fictional work, well, anything actually, when something comes up to me and says, this is right. That is wrong, and this is right. I don't like that. I never have. It's one of the reasons why I try very hard, and I may fail, to not do that myself to others. It's one of the reasons why I try to explain things when I have an opinion, rather than just say, blah. Because I don't like being preached at. I don't like the episode saying, their culture must be preserved at all costs, and any attempt to do otherwise is wrong. Remember how I brought up the Prime Directive last episode? Well, funnily enough, this is another Prime Directive episode where they don't actually bring up the Prime Directive. Now, it's funny, as I have actually heard a couple of Prime Directive detractors bring up this episode. People who are commenting on, hey, so we interfered with their society and then interfered again to set up, cut off their society again. Now, I'm sorry, it actually bothers me because the episode goes so far out of its way to make it fundamentally clear that they're in the right and the Ludosians are in the wrong, and there's no thought. Don't think for yourself. Just accept it. And I hate that. Let's finally get to the elephant in the room. Cultural assimilation is a very... It's a topic I don't like talking about because it's too hard and too easy to get into controversy in that. And I happen to be a white male. Now, I know you're like, well, why does that matter? Well, actually, that doesn't matter to me, to be blunt. However, as I've gotten older, I've had to realize that it matters to other people. There are people out there who, if I started talking about something along the lines of such controversy, they'd say, you have no right to talk about that, you're a white male. As if that completely invalidates everything that I might think or say or feel. That I don't have the right or concept to think or express or digest or dissect or analyze or anything. No, it's not like I understand that plight directly. I've been through my own plights, but I haven't been through that plight. I'm sorry. I'm not actually upset about that much, although that does piss me off when that happens. But I wanted to get that out there. If you think that I shouldn't even talk about this because I'm a white male, shut off the video and go away. Cultural assimilation is a dark topic. It's the kind of thing that has led to some very unpleasant things in human history, where people have moved in and said, we know better. Now, here's the catch, okay? Here's where things get kind of weird. Because a lot of that we know better, this is a weird parallel, but I'm reminded of a scene in Assassin's Creed 4. I know, just bear with me, okay? It's actually the DLC for Assassin's Creed 4. I forget the name of it, but it's an awesome DLC. You should play it. Where you're hunting down a slave owner. It's literally a mission to assassinate a slave owner. Now, anybody who knows me at all knows that I am extremely anti-slavery. It's probably one of the worst things, in my opinion, for many reasons I'm not going to go into. And as you hunt this guy down, he defends his enslavement of them because he is helping them to have some use and function in society as animals. He actually says they're not even really human. Some of those people who were uplifting or trying to help or trying to add to some native societies actually had that mentality when it came to that. And this isn't just a Native American thing, this is just an African thing. This has been happening for a bagrillion years across all of human culture. The way it gets gray is when we get to true cultural assimilation. That is more obvious cultural subjugation. That's a little more dark gray. There's not a lot of positives that come from that. There are some positives that come from that, but whether they are worth it or whether they should have happened, that's way more debatable, and that's getting into a very morally ambiguous situation, which I'm not actually talking about here because we're not talking about real life. We're talking about Star Trek. Here we have cultural assimilation, which is going to happen, not subjugation. We are going to have people who move in to basically give to another cultural group what they have in their culture. And we've already seen that these people are inclined towards cultural assimilation just by being in the presence of Chakotay and Seven, who weren't trying to change them in any way. They were starting to emulate them, right? And there could be any number of reasons for that. But the Ludosians will be going and actively trying to bring them to their starships and their space stations and give them medical technology and education and all the other things that their society has. That is full-on cultural assimilation, not cultural subjugation. And I think we can say that pretty definitively. The episode even actually goes out of its way to have a couple of additional scenes that make it clear. No, we're not here to take, we're here to help. Now, I mention that because that does make this more of a gray situation than in real life, which is part of why this pisses me off. Because if this was flat-out cultural subjugation, like we've seen so many times in real life, then yeah, I'm pretty much sure that's a bad thing, and it shouldn't happen. Anything about the possible benefits of that are getting into the long-term possible benefits for people that might possibly, theoretically, and you just start jumbling so many speculations in the air that you're effectively dancing on air at that point. But this is a more gray assimilation thing, and I really want to make that point clear because it explains so much why this episode pisses me off. Because in my opinion, there is no truly right answer here, even though the episode tries so hard to tell me that there is. There's a great line that Chakotay has. Do you really think that you know what's best for them? No one turns around and says, hey, Chakotay, do you really think you know what's best for them? Because he's doing the exact same thing she is. He is presuming their future because of his personal belief, his personal choice, that is what he thinks is right, which is exactly what she was going to do, I might add. Furthermore, if I may be so bold, why does no one ask them what they want? We've figured out communication. We've figured out the ability to talk with them. There's no ticking clock. There's no, oh God, we got to do this now. I mean, they just sent their first scouting force, their first expedition. God's sakes, they probably have weeks, if not months, before they have to actually act here. Why don't they consult the people about their fate, rather than just presuming it one way or the other? Next point. What is actually best for those people? Will they actually lose their cultural identity through cultural assimilation? Now the answer is, we don't know. Possibly, they may lose their identity as the Ventu and become Lidosians effectively. Or they may maintain their identity as Ventu with Lidosian technology and in Lidosian society. We don't know. Would there be possible prejudice or bias for or against them? Possibly. We don't know. Would they be better benefited from having higher advanced, medical technology or better access to food and resources to have, luxuries in addition to, basic functionality of survival? Possibly. However, I find it interesting the episode goes out of its way twice, actually 3 times, to emphasize how these people, despite having basically no technology, have, they live wonderful, glorious lives in gorgeous land, and they still have a salve which treats a hairline fracture on a bone. Which is actually so ridiculous. When I first heard that, I was actually expecting there to be a line later saying, no, it's actually still broken, it's just you don't feel anything there because it's numb to the pain. Which would make more sense than, oh yeah, this salve we put on your leg fixed a frickin' hairline fracture. But no, it's okay. They have perfectly advanced medical technology and they have rich, full lives. The episode goes way out of its way to make that point. In other words, they live the good life. What do they need of additional advancements in society or technology or culture or whatever, right? Now, if that's true, though, all that does is mean that they either have it good or they have it good. And that makes this even more gray, actually. And as weird as this sounds, I praise that point. If I was, if they gave me this episode and said, here, remake this episode, I would say, yes, keep that in. I want it to be fundamentally clear that whether they are kept segregated or assimilated into the Lidosian culture, they have it good. They're taken care of. The Lidosians go out of their way to mention that they're not the subjugators they used to be, that they actually want to help these people, that they're fascinated by them, they want to enrich them, they want to give unto them the bounty of what they have in their new enlightened society. In other words, they want to do what the Federation does to the people they meet as they expand through the Alpha and Beta quadrants, back when the Federation was still doing that. You see the parallels? That makes it a dilemma, because now we have to presume in a vacuum, with no clear wrong, what to do for the fate of an entire people. And that's what I watch Star Trek for, to be blunt. I mean, okay, that's not true. That's one of the 2 reasons I watch Star Trek. The second reason is because the characters, I love character stuff, but you could really do a lot of character work with that kind of meat, with that kind of core story concept. In fact, you don't even have to change the characters. You've got Chakotay and Seven. Chakotay, who is from a culture that exists in modern technology and eschews it, except for the fact that he himself chose to, of his own volition, to embrace the greater technology, not greater, that's the wrong word, the technological society around him. He has seen both sides of that of that coin. His people lived fine in their agrarian lifestyle, and he has lived fine in his Federation lifestyle. So he actually has both perspectives and can understand why both are enjoyable or palatable one way or another. In fact, I would actually kind of like it if Chakotay was the one championing the idea that they get assimilated into the Ludosians so that they can have the same choice he did as a kid. Because he had that choice, remember? He could have stayed behind with his people, but he chose to leave, and it was available. If they cut this field off, it's no longer available. And the episode even touches on this with the girl who's always with Seven, who shows natural curiosity, who indicates in a fairly primitive way, because they don't actually have verbal communication, but the idea of wanting to do more or be more or experience more, that explorative spark. Shouldn't it be her choice, right? Wouldn't it make so much more sense if Chakotay was championing that perspective? Whereas Seven, on the other hand, is an ex-Borg. I shouldn't even have to explain why an ex-Borg would be against something called cultural assimilation. In fact, I would flat out call it that in the episode. Not only is that what it is, but it also would make the point so much more adamant for her. And have these two characters explore that dynamic, and have them look at each other and try to learn more about themselves and who they were and who they are. And explore this. Do something with it. Don't just yell at the screen that this is right, when you have gone so far out of your way to make sure that there is no right. You even have the aliens flat out attack Voyager, just to show, no, they're definitely the bad guys. What the crap, guys? Why do this? The only hard thing to do when you do something like that is how do you end the episode? And when you have a proper dilemma, you either have to pick a side for some reason or another, or you have to leave it unresolved so that the audience can decide for themselves. However, as much as I hate to admit it, we do have a third option here. Ask the frickin' people. I already mentioned that. Approach them. Do you want this availability? Do you want us to restore... Do you want us to shield you away from the world, so you may stay here and live as you have? Or do you want us to open it so you have the choice to leave if you choose to? Now, there is something a little more gray about this that I haven't actually brought up, and that's the fact that they do plan to settle and study and take resources from the land, which would obviously go against their natural life. That could still be negotiated around. That could still be arranged, if need be, if you wanted to go in that direction with it. Maybe you don't want to go in that direction with it. The reason I mentioned the Prime Directive thing earlier, what the crew of Voyager are doing, what the ancient aliens did when they set up this barrier, is violating the Prime Directive. No, seriously, it is. We are deliberately and intentionally interfering with the development of another culture. Now, it's not the intent of the Prime Directive to prevent that kind of thing per se, because the Prime Directive was this whole 60s anti-proxy war thing in the Truman era. But let's not get into that right now. The point being that this is them deliberately going out of their way to provoke one alien race in order to contain another alien race, in order to artificially change their development as a people. I don't know. I got nothing. I hope you enjoyed this episode, or at least this ruminarant. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what episode's next. We're getting there. We're getting to the end game here. I can look right quick. Now, let's see. Next episode is Homestead. Oh, Homestead. Well, damn it, season 7. You've been so good, but the next few episodes are Homestead, Renaissance Man, and Endgame. Whatever. I'll see you next week, guys.